Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here, and today I have with me the Kurzweil Forte and the Kurzweil Artis SE. Now the Kurzweil Forte is their top of the line stage piano for the gigging keyboardist, and the Artis SE is your basic bread and butter gigging stage piano. Now, if you're a pianist or a keyboardist, there is a difference between the two. A pianist strictly plays piano, and you can do that with either one of these. But if you're strictly a pianist, you probably want to go with the better feeling keys of the higher end Yamahas or the higher end Kawais. But as a keyboardist, which is different than a pianist, they play a lot more things than just piano. They play organs and synths and flutes and violins and guitars and drums and all that kind of stuff. And regular piano action, like you find on the higher end Yamahas and Kawais, isn't going to work for that. That's why Kurzweil and others have a different kind of action, and there's a compromise between piano action and things like synth action, organ action, which is a lot lighter action. But those things aside, let's get into the differences between the Kurzweil Forte, their top of the line, and the Kurzweil Artis SE, which is your basic bread and butter keyboard. So, let's start out with the price, and there's a huge difference in price. The Forte, being their top of the line, lists for $5,295 US. The Artis SE lists for $1,995 US. So basically $5,300 and $2,000 list price. More than 2.5 times the price of this for the Forte. But nobody pays list price or MSRP. So the actual street price, or the price that you can expect to pay at pretty much your average retailer, whether it's online or your local retailer like Sam Ash or Guitar Center, basically that's going to be $3,995 US for the Forte, $1,495 for the Artis SE. So basically you've got $4,000 and $1,500. And again, it's the same ratio, more than 2.5 times the price for the Forte than you pay for the Artis SE. So let's explore what those differences are, and let's start out with the physical differences, which may or may not be important, but the main physical difference is the weight. This is about 48, 49 pounds. This is 38 pounds. 10 pounds difference. It may not be that much, but when all things are considered, this is 25% more weight than the SE. And the other thing is this, because the pitch bend and the modulation wheel are to the left of the keys, it makes this keyboard longer. On the Artis SE, the keyboard pitch bend and modulation wheels are up above the leftmost keys, so it's not to the left. That makes the keyboard a lot shorter. And basically, as far as the measurements here, is about 54.5 inches long, whereas the Artis SE is right around 49.5, 50 inches long. So you've got at least a 4.5 inch difference, and that difference is the actual, right here, 4.5 inches, the actual length of the pitch bend and the modulation wheel over here which is to the left of the keys instead of above. And I'll tell you why that makes a big difference, because pretty much you're going to put this either one of these in a case to take to a gig with you, depending what kind of case you're using, whether it's a soft case or a hard case. That's also going to add weight too, and it's also going to add length. And what I found with the Artis SE, this is going to fit in the back seat of just about any car out there. And as far as the Forte, that's not the case, especially when you throw this into a case to carry this. You're talking about almost 60 inches. It's not going to fit in the back seat. So basically what you have to do in most cars is fold down the front passenger seat, put this in diagonally through the back door if you have a four-door car. Basically, you're putting it in diagonally behind the driver's side and diagonally up to the passenger front seat. Now, when you're doing it that way, you got a couple of problems. Yes, you can transport it, which is great, but you can't take any passengers with you. So if you got your girlfriend or your spouse or you got your friends or whatever, they got to ride in their separate car just so that you can transport this. Okay? Now, let's talk about some other things. The key bed on these, and again, since it's not for the pianist, it is for the keyboardist. So you're not using true piano keys. You don't need wooden action or anything like that. So they both use Fatar action keyboards, which are based out of Italy. And this one uses the Fatar TP40L light. This one uses the TP100. And the nice thing about both of these is they built into their operating system through software control. You control the velocity settings so that the feeling of the action, you can tailor it to however you want. Now, let's talk about polyphony. Each one of these has 128 note polyphony. And as far as the LCD screens on each of these, vastly different. The LCD screen on the Artis SE is basically, it's a text screen. So you've got 2 lines of text, 20 characters per line. As far as the Forte, you've got basically a graphic screen here, and it's pretty big compared to most of the other keyboards out there in the industry today. It's color, and it displays a lot of information out there to you. So basically, 2 lines of text at 20 characters each, and this one on the Forte, you've got something like 480 by 272 pixels, and it's color. Now, as far as the piano samples on each one of these, the piano samples on here, you've got a German D, which is a Steinway Hamburg D. Excellent, excellent piano sample. You've also got a Japanese C7, which is actually a Yamaha C7. And you've got something they call triple strike, which is excellent for breaking through. If you're playing with a gigging band, it's pretty hard for a piano to break through, that glaring guitar and the bass and the drums. But the triple strike piano that's built into here, that is perfect to cut through all of the other instruments. Perfect. As far as the Artis SE, also has the German D, and it has the triple strike, but it does not have the Japanese or the Yamaha C7 in it. And as far as the German D on both of these, this Artis SE is a reduced version of the German D of the Forte, meaning it uses less samples. But basically, when you're playing, they're going to sound pretty much the same. So, unless you're playing a solo classical piece or something like that. But here's the other difference. When it comes to the pedals, this uses a sustain pedal that's basically an on-off switch. So when you're sustaining something and you're lifting up the pedal and it goes to the off position, the sustain just kind of abruptly stops. As far as the Forte, which comes with an on-off switch Kurzweil pedal, which is pretty good, but it's still an on-off switch. It will support half pedaling, but you'll need to buy a half pedal or a pedal that's capable of that, such as the Korg DS1H, and that does not come with that. That's an extra purchase. And yeah, this will support half pedaling if you're using another piano controller that supports it and you feed it through MIDI. Well, I mean, come on, you're going to go to a gig, you're going to bring this with you, and then you're going to bring another keyboard controller so that you can play piano here and have half pedaling. I don't think so. But for most gigs, half pedaling isn't needed. But this one supports it, and it's great. After going through the various pianos that I've went through, half pedaling is kind of a must for me. But when I'm at a gig, it doesn't really matter. It matters in the studio when you're doing studio quality for film, television, movies, that kind of thing. Okay, and as far as programs, this has something like 322 factory programs. When we say programs, we mean the same thing as patches, voices, samples, tones. It depends on the manufacturer. They all mean the same thing. This one has 256. Basically, two banks of 128 each to give you the 256. And this one, you got this whole array of 20 different categories to choose from to get to your 322. And they keep adding to it too. Now, as far as multis, which Korg calls combis and others, basically it's being able to layer up to 4 sounds to give you a combi or a multi. Same thing here. They each can do that. All right. Now, as far as the built-in multis here, you got 186 of those here and 128 over here. None of these support general MIDI, which that's cool. General MIDI is kind of old, and you don't really need that kind of support anymore. And let's go to VAST editing, and each one of these is supposedly having an editor that will run on your PC or your Mac or whatever. And when this came out, they didn't have that editor. They added it. Now you have the editor. So far for the Artis SE, you don't have that yet. So I anticipate that will be forthcoming. And that those editors are a cool thing because you have that big PC screen in front of you and all these options that you can control. And it just makes things a lot easier. Okay. Effects unit, 32 effects units here, 16 over here. Effects editing, well, you've got compressor and you've got EQ. Over here, you've only got EQ. And as far as EQ goes, you got 4 knobs here for EQ. You've got basically the treble and the bass, and these 2 knobs comprise a sweepable mid-range. As far as the Artis SE is concerned, you got basically mid and low and high. That's it. Not a sweepable mid-range, but that's still pretty cool. And each one of these can be turned on or off with the touch of a button. But the compressor here, that makes it pretty good too. You don't have the compressor over here. Okay. You don't have really sample memory on any of these, but when you get the Artis SE, the sounds that come with this, that's what you get. For the life of however long you're using it, those are the sounds you get. With the Forte, when they release a new operating system, at least with the last one, version OS 1.21, as of this video, they've also given you more sounds, other sounds, so that makes it pretty cool. You get more sounds built in than you do with the Artis SE. They keep adding stuff to it. With 16 gigabytes of memory, they can afford to do that. And it's pretty good. Now, the Nord Stage 2 or the Chord Kronos, those are sampling keyboards, so you can add to it. And this seems to be somewhere of a hybrid between a sampling keyboard and a fixed keyboard, because they can add sounds with OS updates. And they may even make this a sampling keyboard in the future. I'm not sure. That remains to be seen. Okay, and as far as the analog outputs, you've got mains and aux over here. And over here you just have a main. As far as the sliders, you've got 4 sliders here, you've got 9 here. Now this Forte, where it really shines, it seems to be like the main focus, besides the German D piano, which is really phenomenal. It's really fantastic. On either of these, even though this has less samples than this one does, the other function of this keyboard is they have what's called KB3 mode, which is Kurzweil's version of the Hammond B3. And with that mode, when you select that, everything that's labeled in blue here, basically half the keyboard becomes dedicated to that KB3 mode. These 9 sliders become the organ stops. And all of these switches up here become the break, and you can turn on or off the chorus or vibrato and the depth. You can turn on or off the percussion, which consists of loud, soft, decay, fast or slow, pitched, high and low, key click, and over here you've got the rotary control for slow or fast, and you've got KB3 distortion. I mean, the Nord Stage 2 had an excellent organ. This one, I would have to say, beats that out. So for that purpose alone, between the piano and the organ, that makes this worth the price. And all the other sounds that are built into that, that just makes it gravy. All right. As far as the 4 sliders over here, I mean, with each one of these, you have 4 zones, meaning you can layer up to 4 different sounds. You can turn each one of those sounds on or off, and you have a volume control for each one of those sounds. And you got the same thing over here. And if you're in multi-mode, you press another switch over here that's called filter effects. That turns the sliders into your filter and effects controls. So basically, you've got the equivalent of 8 sliders over here through means of a switch. Here, everything is laid out in front of you. And when you're at a really dark gig, if you're at a venue that's dark, and there's a lot of those happening, you know, this is okay, but over here, you've got these LED towers, and every time you adjust anything over here, there's an LED tower to show you how much you've adjusted it by. When you switch to another sound, and you can see, it shows you where those switches or these sliders belong. So it's not fading, or it's not motorized, it's not flying faders or anything like that, but it's the next best thing because it shows you where those faders belong. And on the Nord Stage 2, they don't have any faders at all. Those are all knobs, but it shows you via LED display around those knobs where those knobs should be set. So it's a matter of preference. And on the organs, I much prefer the sliders to use as the organ stops, as opposed to the Nord's method, where they use up and down switches, and those switches light up an LED tower to show you how far up or down you're going. So that's another thing that's pretty cool about that. As far as continuous controller inputs, this has two of them. This one only has one. One, in most cases, is all you really need, but two is really nice because you have extra control that you don't have with most of the other things. As far as maximum user objects, 2048 here, 512 here. So basically, there's a lot more differences between these two. I just basically touched on the major differences between these two. But basically, piano on each of these, just about identical, but again, the difference, you have more samples on the Forte on the same piano than you do on the Artis, and you also have half pedaling support that you don't have on the Artis SE. And again, that half pedaling going to cost you a little extra. You're going to have to buy something like a Korg DS1H half pedal to get to that. It's not supported with the pedal that comes with this. So I hope that helps you out a little bit. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.